Shalom. This week we are reading the Torah portion of Vayechi, the 12th and final Parsha in the book of Bereshit, Genesis, beginning with verse 28 of chapter 47. This portion focuses on the final years of Yaakov in Egypt, having now been reunited with his beloved son Yosef. The final 17 years of Yaakov were certainly his happiest, but his most complete. This is attested to by the very structure of the first verse of our portion. And Jacob lived in the land of Egypt 17 years, and the days of the years of Yaakov's life were 147 years. There are actually exactly 17 words in the verse, standing up for these 17 years. And note that 17 is the gematria, the numerical value of the word tov, good. Ironically, these good years were spent in Egypt, in the land of Goshen, and not in the land of Canaan, the land of Israel. Yaakov knows that his time to leave this world is approaching. So he calls for his son Yosef and makes him promise, swear even, that he will not bury him in Egypt, but only in the Machpelah tomb of his fathers in the land of Israel. Then he blesses his son Yosef and Yosef's sons Manasseh and Ephraim, declaring that these two shall be counted among the tribes of Israel. Yaakov then gathers all his sons and blesses them, though his words to Reuven, Shimon, and Levi are actually pretty harsh criticism. To Reuven on account of the incident with Bilhah, and to Shimon and Levi on account of their retaliatory actions with Shechem following the rape of Dinah. Afterwards, he blesses his sons in this order: Yehuda, Zvulun, Issachar, Dan, Gad, Asher, Naphtali, Yosef, and Binyamin, elongating particularly the blessings of Yehuda and Yosef. All these blessings have a prophetic overtone. They relate to the characteristics, the traits of the tribes, and what the future holds for them. More specifically, what their role is in the future. Immediately upon concluding the blessings, Yaakov commands his sons to bury him in the cave of Machpelah, in the land of Canaan. He leaves this world. The Egyptians embalm Yaakov, and all of Egypt mourns over him. We recall that Yaakov had had a special audience with Pharaoh and gave him his blessing. But in perhaps a sign of the times that are a-changing, a nod to the ominous change of winds and a portent of the shape of things to soon come, Yosef has to get special permission from Pharaoh to leave Egypt, to go to the land of Israel to bury his father. Do we sense that the screws of the exile are already starting to tighten, even on the royal prodigious son and his family? Next week, in the first Parsha of the book of Exodus, we read of the demise of all the original tribes of Israel. Our sages tell us that all the while that any of the original brothers lived, the servitude and bondage of Israel had not yet begun. But now, judging from the instructions Pharaoh gave upon the death of Yaakov, we can sense the horizon darkening. Well, Yosef and his brothers depart Egypt for the journey to bury Yaakov with a huge Egyptian military honor guard, or just plain guard to make sure they come back. Egypt's honored citizens, or soon-to-be prisoners. After taking a circuitous route with several way stations, Yaakov is buried in the tomb of the patriarchs, and the family returns to Egypt. The brothers now suspect that now that their father has died, Yosef will finally seek to avenge himself of their sale of him. They tell him that Yaakov commanded him, they remind him, Yaakov commanded him to make the peace with them, to forgive them for the evil they have done him. But they're lying, albeit for the sake of peace, and doubtless driven by desperation, but this never happened. There's no such verse indicating that Yaakov gave this command to Yosef, and how could there be? As we shall continue discussing today, Yaakov never knew of the sale till his dying day. No wonder Yosef reacted to this by weeping, as we read in chapter 50 and verse 17. He realized the extent of the brothers' self-persecution, of their deep feelings of guilt, so severe that they're now driven to desperation. Yosef consoles them and assures them that while their intentions were not good, God had good intentions for him to wind up in Egypt, as he says, in order to keep a vast people alive. At the end of our Parsha, Yosef passes away at the age of 110, but not before he informs the children of Israel that God will surely remember you and bring you up out of this land to the land that he swore to Abraham, to Isaac, and to Jacob. So you see, he knew that they could no longer leave on their own. Yosef was embalmed and placed in a coffin in Egypt, but told his family, when God will indeed remember you, then you must bring my bones up out of here. so many intriguing things about our Parsha. So much is said, but so much is not said. So much between the lines that remains unspoken. And if you've ever had the privilege of seeing up close how this portion is traditionally written in a Torah scroll, then you can't help but be intrigued, because this Parsha is known in Hebrew as a Parsha Stuma, which means a closed portion. See, the written Torah is divided into sections which are called either open or closed. These terms refer to the amount of empty space, the white blank space that is left between the end of one portion and the beginning of the next. Our portion of Vayechi is the only one of all the 54 Torah portions which is completely closed. That means it starts mid-sentence in the scroll with absolutely no space in between it and the previous portion of Vayigash. The Midrash offers several explanations for this extraordinary tradition. One reason given is that it is an allusion to the anguish felt over Yaakov's passing. The eyes and hearts of the children of Israel were closed, unquote, with his death, the event, his death, which led to the beginning of Israel's bondage in Egypt. Rashi cites this Midrashic teaching, but then, as if he's not completely satisfied with the first explanation, which by the way is the reason why Rashi ever offers a second explanation, he says, another explanation is that he, Yaakov, attempted to reveal the end of the exile to his sons, but it was closed off, concealed from him. This is an amazing idea. Our sages provide this compelling backstory that Yaakov gathers all his sons together and intends to reveal to them everything that will transpire until the time of the redemption. This is evident and clear from the words of the verse in the beginning of chapter 49. Then Jacob called for his sons and said, "Assemble yourselves, and I will tell you what will befall you in the end of days." The thing is, he never does, at least not explicitly. He goes on to chastise and bless his children, which is very nice, but something else altogether, though the blessings do contain strong messianic allusions. Our sages teach that this is not what he originally intended in sending for his sons, which was to make startling, explicit prophetic revelations to them about the end of days. We are taught that the Shekhinah, the divine presence, departed from him and he lost the prophecy. According to the Midrash, he feared that God found something unworthy about one or more of his children, and that's why he lost his train of thought. Sensing this, the sons of Israel sought to console him and assure him that Hashem was in their hearts just like their father, and they declared to him, "Shema Yisrael, listen, Israel, our father, Hashem, who is our God, Hashem is one. Just as he is one in your heart, so is he in ours." So I've always been intrigued by these blessings of Yaakov and the secret of redemption that he didn't give over. And although he changed tracks, still many secrets can be learned from what he did say. We could go very far with this. But I would like to focus today on the fact that he didn't speak, because he's not the only one in this Parsha who didn't say everything that there was to say. It's like a theme. In fact, the silences in this Parsha teach us as much as the words. Maybe that's one reason that the Parsha is closed. There's an ancient tradition cited by the Pirkei de Rabbi Eliezer and the Rabbeinu Bachaya that Yaakov was never to know of the sale of Yosef, that Hashem himself banned anyone from revealing the truth of Yosef's sale to Yaakov, and a curse would come upon anyone who revealed it to him. God actually made this a cherem, which means a ban, an embargo. The brothers were 9, and Hashem himself joined in to make a minyan. And why all of this? Because were Yaakov to find out that his sons had acted in this manner, his reaction would be so severe that he must never know. So we're aware of this story, like for us the fourth wall is broken, but Yaakov himself never knew. The young Binyamin, he knew through divine inspiration, but he wasn't talking, and he never did. Now, the testimony to Binyamin's silence, immortalized forever, is represented by his tribe stone on the Choshen, the breastplate of the high priest, one of the 8 garments worn by the Kohen Gadol in the Holy Temple. Binyamin's stone is the jasper, called in Hebrew yashpeh. See, jasper, yashpeh. As we read in Exodus chapter 28 and verse 20, the 4th row, Tarshish, Shoham, and yashpeh. Open up your hearts in deepest way. The Hebrew word for jasper, yashpeh, consists of the letters that form the words in order, yeshpeh. Literally, he has a mouth. meaning Benjamin has a mouth, but he didn't use it. See, having a mouth is measured by knowing when not to use it. Binyamin knew about the sale of Yosef, but he never told because of the ban, because they all agreed with Hashem's will that the matter never be revealed to Yaakov. States the Midrash something amazing. Rachel's trait is silence. Of course, we learn that from the fact that she didn't want to embarrass her sister, so she remained quiet when actually Leah was substituted for her. And Midrash continues, get this language, the Midrash uses this expression. All her descendants have a secret. Literally, the words in Hebrew of the Midrash, they are mystery people. Bale misterin. Midrash continues, Benjamin, his stone is the yashpeh, because he knew about the sale of Yosef but never told. Saul, as we read in 1 Samuel chapter 10 and verse 16, Saul's uncle said, tell me now what Samuel said to you. Saul said, he told us that the donkeys had been found, but he did not tell him about the matter of the kingship of which Samuel had spoken. And Esther, chapter 2 and verse 20, Esther did not reveal her people. So all these children of Rachel, like their mother, they weren't talkers. They didn't talk. So the yashpeh stone in the high priest's holy garment is an eternal testimony to Benjamin, teaching us that having a mouth doesn't necessarily mean that you have to use it. And on the contrary, the real measure of a mouth, having a mouth, is to know when to keep it closed, when not to use it. Benjamin's reticence is celebrated for eternity on the breastplate of the high priest in the holy temple, coming and going in before the divine presence and representing him together with all the tribes of Israel before Hashem. And the aspect that is brought before Hashem as an eternal tribute to Benjamin is Benjamin's not talking. Wow, what a life lesson. We could go home right now, but I'm not done yet. Oh, can I show you something very cool? Okay, this is a piece of jasper, a slab of jasper, but it's a certain type. It's known as Briggs jasper, or picture jasper, from Briggs, Oregon. Briggs jasper is a variety of the mineral jasper. It's a picture jasper. Jasper that exhibits particular patterns and colors and is used as an opaque gemstone. It exhibits intricate shell or layer-like patterns and shades of brown ranging from beige to dark brown. This type of stone was first discovered around 1960 near Briggs Junction, Oregon, and it's found in the basalt deposits of the American Pacific Northwest. Briggs jasper was formed as mud from volcanic ash was deposited on basalt terrain and subsequently heated and compressed through volcanic activity. Because of this sedimentary origin, it is relatively rare and is valued as a gemstone. So apparently, jasper, the gemstone of Benjamin. And by the way, the word yashpeh has the gematria, the same numerical value as Binyamin ben Yaakov. So, Benjamin knew when not to talk. Now, I want to ask you a question about Yosef. So please open up your heart in the deepest way. Honestly, I think that one of the deepest mysteries of this Parsha is the simple verse in chapter 48 and verse 1, and it came to pass after these things that someone said to Joseph, behold, your father is ill. So he took his two sons, Manasseh and Ephraim, with him. Why is it that Yosef had to be told his father was sick and had to be called? Now I understand that Yosef lived in Egypt proper, attending to his royal administrative role, and Yaakov lived in the land of Goshen with his sons. But why did they live apart? And even if they did they have a family WhatsApp group? So here's the thing. You know that all the years, the rest of his life even, Yosef never, ever revealed the slightest word to Yaakov his father, not orally, not by hint or sign, not in writing, not directly, not indirectly, not through someone else, not a word about the sale. How could it be that a person like Yosef HaTzadik, the righteous Yosef, did not put his father in an apartment next door to him, or better still, in a luxury suite in his own regal home? Yosef, with his royal duties, had to remain in Egypt. But why did he settle his father in the land of Goshen? When his father was sick, Yosef had no idea until a messenger, whoever that was, came to tell him? Is that how one treats an elderly, infirm father, putting him in a home far away especially when we're talking about a father and son who had such a special relationship that we've been talking about for so long, and especially when we're speaking about such a close and important relationship that had been on hold, even mourned over, for 22 years? This is what the Midrash states. Is this the praise of Yosef, then, who was so concerned about his father that he was not frequent by him, that had not others come to inform him that his father was ill, he wouldn't have known? But actually, continues the Midrash, all this is to inform you of Yosef's righteousness. He was careful, open up your heart. He was careful never to be found alone with his father, so that the opportunity for a private conversation wherein Yaakov could say to Yosef, how did this all come about? How did you wind up down here? And how did your brothers figure into this? So that that conversation would never come about, for if it would, Yaakov would curse the brothers. Think about what this means. These were the happiest years for both Yaakov and Yosef, but there was trouble in paradise. 17 years. Yosef kept his distance from his father's house, and when he did come to visit, it was always together with a large company, so that Yaakov could never initiate a private conversation on this sensitive and secret subject. Thus the Midrash concludes, he never informed his father of the sale, not in writing, not orally, not know-how, nothing. Yosef sacrificed his time with his father for his father's sake and for the sake of his brothers. This could also provide the reason as to why Yosef, all 22 years he was in Egypt, starting as a slave but then living as a ruler, never contacted his father and informed him that he was still alive. He knew he was the beloved and favored son, and was certainly aware that his father was suffering in great anguish over his disappearance. But if he would be found, his father would seek to clarify the circumstances that led to his situation, and Yosef reasoned the anguish Yaakov would feel knowing that his sons were capable of such a deed would be worse than the anguish he had experienced over Yosef's disappearance. In the bliss of ignorance, it was possible for Yaakov to blame his disappearance on natural circumstances, an accident, as he said, a wild beast devoured him. After all, these things happen, but not that his sons were to blame for such a grievous and heinous sin. Thus, not only did Yosef not inform his father that he was alive through a messenger while he was a slave, but even during these 7 years of plenty as Yosef ruled, he did not inform him. Although undoubtedly merchants were going back and forth between Canaan and Egypt, he still told nothing, all in order to protect his father's health as well as his brother's dignity, those same brothers who did him so dirty. But I personally believe that at one point, if not from the beginning, despite the simple meaning of what the verses seem to present, perhaps even from the beginning, I believe that Yaakov did know, or at least suspect at the beginning, and then he knew later for sure, that Yosef was indeed alive. He knew the boys were hiding something from him, he knew something was up, but what was for sure, he didn't know what. But even if he did know sooner or later that Yosef was indeed alive, he certainly never found out about the details of the sale. And that's what we're emphasizing here. But in case you were thinking of asking this question, in case you're a Torah scholar, and I know you are, you might be thinking about this. There does ostensibly seem to be at least one major contradiction to this notion. One verse which implies that Yaakov was aware of the sale itself, and that is in this verse in chapter 49, Yaakov seems to break the fourth wall again and signal to us. Before dying, Yaakov praises Yehudah with the words, Yehudah is a lion cub. From the prey of my son you rose up. And with these words, Yaakov is praising Yehudah that he removed himself from the potential killing of Yosef with a suggested compromise of selling him as a slave. Thus Rashi says, citing the sages on Genesis 49:9, what does it mean from the prey? From what I suspected of you, namely that Joseph had surely been torn up, a wild beast devoured him. This refers, Rashi says, to Yehudah, who was likened to a lion. What does it mean, from my son you withdrew? What, you withdrew yourself and said, what is the gain if we slay our brother and cover up his blood? Similarly, Yaakov blamed Shimon and Levi for Yosef in chapter 49 and verse 6 with the words, and with their will they hamstrung a bull. His intention in these words was that Shimon and Levi sought to uproot Joseph, who was called a bull. As it said, the firstborn of his bull, he has majesty, Deuteronomy 33:17. But if Yaakov's intention in these words to Yehudah, Shimon, and Levi was an allusion to Yosef, that means he knew. Is that what you're wondering? But whatever Yaakov understood about Yosef's whereabouts and any inkling of idea he had about the actual sale was not a result of having been informed by any human agency, but rather some sort of vague prophetic vision. At the moment when Hashem rested his presence on him for him to bless his sons, it was just a brief glimpse and altogether unclear, like a feeling. Additionally, there's an idea that a person, especially a righteous person, receives a higher level of awareness on the day of death. But he knew of nothing tangible about who was involved, no facts. Thus, at the moment he finished blessing his sons, he passed away, as we read in chapter 49 and verse 33. And Jacob concluded commanding his sons, and he drew his legs up into the bed and expired and was brought into his people. So he had not the time neither to speak with Yosef nor with any of his brothers as to what was revealed to him in this vision. All the silences in this closed Parsha form an amazing life lesson for us. It's not always necessary, wise, or proper to give over information to others. In our day of instant global communication, punctuated by social media that documents in real time the most inane, banal, and ridiculous alleged evidence of human life, can we even consider the notion that it's just not necessary to say everything that comes to mind? Even things that might be bothering us very much, as long as there is a possibility that someone else could be hurt as a result of this knowledge being revealed. According to Torah, not only is it not worthwhile, it's forbidden. This is who Yosef was. For 22 years he suffered in Egypt, lonely, and never informed his father of his whereabouts in order not to cause him further suffering, as well as not to cause his brothers to be severely punished on his account. Even after Yosef rose to power and after a separation of 22 years, he settled his father at a distance in the land of Goshen for the remaining 17 years, apparently not acting like the greatest son, not visiting him regularly, or at least not alone, coming infrequently with plenty of company. But this was all another example, open your heart in the deepest way, another example of and a continuation of Yosef's award-winning acting capability. For he certainly loved his father so much, didn't we read? He fell on his neck and cried when they were reunited. So this distance required tremendous powers of restraint and self-discipline. And you know what? Getting back to Yaakov's blessings in lieu of his prophetic revelation on the redemption, there are so many reasons we could think of ourselves as to why Yaakov was prevented from giving over this information. For example, if they had that information, if we all did, how would that influence free choice, which is so important? Bringing about the redemption, after all, should be left to us through good deeds. If we knew when it was coming about, would we not become lax? Perhaps in addition to the teaching that the prophecy was taken away from him, we should consider the possibility that perhaps Yaakov changed his mind, because after all, one doesn't have to say everything. In any event, the words of the blessings to the sons are themselves prophetic future secrets whose meaning is yet unfolding, and perhaps the greatest gift that Yaakov, together with his sons, bequeathed to all future generations of their people to the end of time is the secret of Shema Yisrael, one in our hearts as he is in yours. So whatever Yaakov did know or didn't know, the main thing they all knew, passed down to us, was Shema Yisrael. Hashem is one, and there's no interference. It's all good. And everything, through the years, the good, the bad, it's all a manifestation of, as Yosef explained it to his brothers, God intended it for good. Chazak, chazak v'nitchazek, we declare at the conclusion of reading one of the 5 books of the Torah as we will this Shabbat. Be strong, and let us be strengthened.